So before starting processing, it is a good idea to open settings. We have this button over here where you can click F10. These are all the parameters that we're going to use for processing. But before we go into this, I just want to go to the General tab really quickly. These are some interface settings, so you can pick a dark theme if that's what you prefer. You can change some of the colors, set sounds for completion or for some kind of error, change some of the keyboard shortcuts if you like, and change speed for your 3D mouse joypad if you're using it. Set file associations and check for updates. Set this option for checking for updates on startup. So this will not install this new version, but it just will show you the message that there is a new version available, and if you want, you can install it. You can, of course, then reset all that to defaults. So let's get back to the processing tab. So first of all, what I want to show you is that we have this question mark over here that shows all these settings, all these parameters. It's like a little reminder of what those options are, what they are for, what are the optimal values for them. But generally, these are just presets. So depending on the scanner you're using and depending on the object that you scanned, you can just pick those parameters, and these are like fail-safe parameters. You can of course change them after that. You can save a new profile, give it a new name, whatever, if these are settings that you using quite often. But I'm going to use Calibry Industrial Profile. You can just set it to default if you like, because these are two skins made with Calibry, and this is industrial part, so that's what we're going to use. And you can see we have like 3 blocks here. So there's a registration, finalization, and texturing. These are like 3 major steps of processing. And on the registration stage, we only have preliminary cleaning. This is option that removes the noise from a point cloud. Sometimes it's a good idea to disable it, but in most cases, it should be done. So if you're scanning, for example, a human person and you're scanning a head, statistical filtering can remove some of the hair, for example. Or if you're scanning some hard to reach parts, some of the regions might disappear because they will be just filtered out. So finalizing the mesh, this is a resolution, of course, that's the main parameter here. For Calibry, its maximum resolution is 0.6. For Calibry Mini, it's 0.2, but in many cases, it might be a good idea to set a bit higher value for your scan. So I'm using Calibry here, but I'm going to use like 0.7 over here. Or if you want it to be done quickly, you can use like a resolution 1mm or something. So let's leave it at 7. Fill holes. So in the process of converting point cloud into the model, into the polygonal mesh, we can fill some of the small holes. So we can set the radius. Healthy value for Calibry is usually from 3 to like 5mm. For Calibry Mini, it's 1-2mm, but you can always set fill all holes or none of them. But usually radius hole filling is a good idea. Sharpness just shows how rough or smooth the surface is going to be. This is a middle value and it's usually healthy, so leave it here. If you want your model to be smoother, it might be a good idea to make it a bit lower level of sharpness, especially if you're scanning a person or you don't have enough data on your scan, so without it, it can be a bit rough. It is usually not a very good idea to put it all the way down or all the way up, so middle is a good value and you can just move it a little bit back and forth. If your scan is marker scan, so you can remove markers, there is such an option. It just cuts the markers, the area where marker is attached, and just refill this hole. But we're not using marker scan in this example. And filtering by size and simplifications, another 2 functions that we can use later on. So I usually switch them off, but there is an option. If you know what you're doing, you can just remove parts smaller than certain size or just leave the biggest part. But I usually switch it off. Same goes with simplification. If you're using high-res parameters, you can end up having a very massive model, and it might be a good idea to simplify it to a certain percent or to the absolute value of faces. But once again, we can do this later on, so I usually deactivate it. So these are the parameters that we're going to use. Clicking OK, and let's take a look at the processing itself.